Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story, the FBI investigating a mass shooting threat in Atlanta. The senator threatened to attack theatergoers if the venue hosts a performing arts group that exposes communism. The Justice Department says that North Koreans are sneaking into U.S. tech companies and stealing technology, all while on the payroll. A $5 million reward now posted for anyone with information. And a comment from President-elect Donald Trump sends Bitcoin surging to a record high. The FBI says it's investigating a mass shooting threat in Atlanta, Georgia. The theater received a message days ago with a photo of a gun and ammunition. The center threatened to shoot attendees if the venue goes ahead with hosting performing arts group Shen later this month.
The show must go on is the message in Atlanta, Georgia, that's despite a mass shooting threat made against the Shen Performing Arts World Tour. On Wednesday, the local presenter, the Falun Dafa Association of Atlanta, which supports Shen Yun's performances in the city, received a message written in Chinese, along with a photo of a gun and ammunition. The sender threatened to break in and shoot everyone during Shen Yun's performance later this month. Organizers say the FBI is now investigating, and the show will go on as planned. Shen Yun is a classical Chinese dance company that has been targeted by the Chinese Communist Party since it was founded in 2006.
The very nature of the show, where they present the culture of China, the Chinese Communist Party has spent decades trying to destroy.
Shen Yun says the Chinese regime has tried to sabotage its tour more than 130 times. Its records detail how the regime has pressured local elected officials, threatened theater managers, made bomb threats, and even slashed the tires of Shen Yun buses. Last month, a Chinese agent was sentenced to prison in New York for trying to bribe an IRS agent. His goal was to get Shen Yun's nonprofit status revoked.
The Chinese Communist Party has been doing this for decades, creating different paths of influence of people they can manipulate to carry out these exact operations.
Shen Yun is a global sensation, performing for over 1 million people every year. It highlights the human rights abuses suffered by people in China today. This has made it a target for the Chinese regime. The group was founded by practitioners of the spiritual practice Falun Gong. It's heavily persecuted in China. Recent whistleblower accounts and leaked documents reveal that the Chinese Communist Party is now escalating its attacks on Falun Gong in America. Its main target is Shen Yun and other organizations founded by Falun Gong practitioners.
President Biden is taking action to address Chinese Communist Party repression on U.S. soil. The White House last week announced the creation of a new task force. It's set to target the Chinese regime's increasing efforts to censor or intimidate entities that seek to expose its abuses. North Koreans are allegedly sneaking into U.S. tech companies. The Justice Department says these workers are stealing technology while they're on the payroll. Washington is now offering a $5 million reward for anyone with information. Here's the story.
The Department of Justice says that North Koreans have been sneaking into U.S. tech companies to steal technology while getting paid. They would then allegedly funnel their earnings to the North Korean government. In an indictment, officials say around 130 North Korean IT workers, known as IT warriors, tried to trick U.S. tech firms into hiring them. The firms would pay them large salaries while giving them access to trade secrets. DOJ says some IT warriors even threatened to publicize the trade secrets to extort more money from their employers. DOJ has indicated 14 North Koreans who allegedly generated $88 million over 6 years. Much of that money went back to North Korea, according to Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco. She warns employers to be careful not to hire North Koreans. DOJ says that the scheme centers around remote work, so employers never actually meet the employees. The North Koreans allegedly hide their true identities by using stolen American identities, paying Americans to attend interviews and work meetings, and setting up phony websites. The Justice Department is offering $5 million to people with more information.
Bitcoin surging to a record high Monday. This after President-elect Trump said he would do, quote, something great with crypto because he didn't want China taking the lead. Here are the details.
Bitcoin just keeps heading higher. The world's top cryptocurrency hit fresh record highs above $106,000 in Asian trade Monday. That defied the predictions of some analysts who had expected a pullback after it broke through the 100,000 level. It's all about the Donald Trump effect.
Hello, Bitcoiners.
Bitcoin bounced after comments from the president-elect that suggested he could create a US Bitcoin strategic reserve, akin to its existing oil reserves. Late last week, he told CNBC that he would do something great with crypto because he didn't want China taking the lead. When asked if he planned to create a strategic reserve, he said, "Yeah, I think so. It's a move other countries have considered." Earlier this month, Russian President Vladimir Putin questioned whether state reserves needed to be held in foreign currencies and appeared to flag Bitcoin as an option. But skeptics also abound, including Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. He says Bitcoin is volatile and not used for payments or as a store of value, making it no rival to the dollar. Even so, market optimism over crypto knows few limits right now. Bitcoin is up over 50% since Trump's election win, lifted by a bet his administration will be friendly to digital assets. He's appointed crypto advocates to key positions overseeing the sector and running the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Weeks before President-elect Trump takes office, a blacklisted Chinese company has terminated its business in Xinjiang, an autonomous region in northwest China. The U.S. government accuses Beijing of forced labor crimes against the Uyghur ethnic minority group there. NTD's Flora Hua has more on the story.
Hikvision is a Chinese manufacturer of surveillance products. It announced it has terminated 5 contracts with Chinese authorities in Xinjiang and will no longer provide maintenance for them. Hikvision's move is seen as a step to avoid being targeted again by the incoming Trump administration. A company executive indicated 2 months ago that the business has been struggling due to the sluggish Chinese economy. So mending deteriorated ties with the U.S. has become even more urgent. Washington blacklisted the company in 2019 during Trump's first term. That's over an alleged involvement in China's state-led human rights abuses against the ethnic group Uyghurs in Xinjiang. Last year, the Biden administration added 5 subsidiaries of the company to its blacklist over a similar allegation. It's worth noting that the northwestern region is home to most of the Uyghurs residing in the country. On top of that, Trump's pick for Secretary of State in his 2.0 cabinet, Senator Marco Rubio, is known for his hawkish stance on China. He has led the charge against Hikvision and others and accused them of, quote, posing national security dangers to the United States, end quote, as well as aiding the Chinese Communist Party in building up a surveillance state in China. Flora Hua, NTD News.
How advanced is China's technology? Google's former CEO, Eric Schmidt, is warning that artificial intelligence will soon work autonomously and that it could pose a threat. And even more alarming, the way Chinese AI technology has advanced with remarkable speed. This is what Schmidt told ABC's George Stephanopoulos.
We're soon going to be able to have computers running on their own, deciding what they want to do. And eventually you say to the computer, learn everything and do everything. And that's a dangerous point. When the system can self-improve, we need to seriously think about unplugging it. Well, I used to think we were a couple of years ahead of China, but China has caught up in the last 6 months in a way that is remarkable. The Chinese are clever, and they understand the power of a new kind of intelligence for their industrial might, their military might, and their surveillance system.
Schmidt said it's crucial for the U.S. to innovate, but also warned that current regulation related to AI is insufficient.
He talked about steps that companies follow to ensure their AI do not give harmful information. But increasing competition could potentially lead to some companies omitting these steps.
Coming up, an alleged Chinese spy with links to both Prince Andrew from the UK and the Chinese Communist Party. Now more information is coming in. China's market plagued by troubling indicators, details on the increasingly dire state of the world's second largest economy. And thousands of U.S. troops are leaving Japan for Guam under a U.S.-Japan agreement inked 12 years ago. We tap an expert for info on why Guam has such strategic importance.
Guam is the farthest American-controlled military outpost in the Pacific.
That discussion and more after the break here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A British court has named an alleged Chinese spy with links to both Prince Charles's younger brother, Prince Andrew from the UK, and the Chinese Communist Party. British lawmakers say it's not an isolated incident, but rather the tip of an iceberg that highlights China's influence in Britain. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has details for us from London.
An alleged Chinese spy banned from Britain on national security grounds and linked to Prince Andrew has been named as Yang Tenbo. He had been subject to a court anonymity order and previously only named as H6. But the Royal Court of Justice lifted this order on Monday. Speaking in Parliament, British lawmaker Ian Duncan Smith said Yang is not a lone wolf.
He was one of some 40,000 members of the United Works Department, which the Intelligence Security Committee report last year said, and I quote, "and known to government, had penetrated every sector of the UK economy, spying, stealing intellectual property, influencing and shaping our institutions."
Duncan Smith added that lawmakers are exposed to United Front members on a regular basis. Home Office Minister Dan Jarvis didn't commit to doing so, but said,
"Work is underway to identify which foreign powers will be placed on the enhanced tier. That will be based on robust security and intelligence analysis."
Yang had forged close business links with Prince Andrew and mixed with other British establishment figures. He is the director of Hampton Group International, a firm that provides consulting to companies for their affairs in China. The 50-year-old worked as a junior civil servant in China before heading to the UK in 2002. Yang, also known as Christopher Yang, was the founder partner of Pitch at Palace China. The Pitch at Palace initiative was Prince Andrew's scheme to support entrepreneurs. Court documents said Yang has sometimes deliberately obscured his links with the Chinese Communist Party and the CCP's United Front Work Department. Yang was also an honorary member of the 48 Club, a group dedicated to strengthening Beijing's commercial ties with the UK. According to the 2020 book Hidden Hand, the 48 Club acts as a conduit for the Chinese regime to groom senior British businessmen and political figures. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Disappointing retail sales numbers from China, keeping calls alive for Beijing to ramp up consumer-focused stimulus. This comes as policymakers brace for more U.S. trade tariffs under a second Trump administration. Let's dive in.
Chinese shoppers are giving policymakers in Beijing a headache. Monday saw a mixed bag of data on the country's economy, and retail sales were one big disappointment. They did rise, up 3.3% in November, but that was way down on the previous month and far below forecasts. And that's despite big promotions by online stores and government-subsidised trade-in programs for some sectors, including autos. The mixed figures are likely to maintain pressure on officials for more stimulus. All the more so with a second Donald Trump administration looming.
They don't like tariffs, but we're doing the tariffs.
The US president-elect has vowed to impose steep new tariffs on imports from China, threatening a big blow for the country's exporters. A years-long property crisis continues to pose a big challenge, with some 70% of household savings parked in real estate. Monday's figures showed new home prices falling again, but at their slowest pace in 17 months.
U.S. sanctions on China appear to be working as intended. Investment into China's microchip sector is down nearly 36% this year from last year. That's according to a Chinese research firm. China aims to one day be able to design and mass produce its own cutting-edge chips and reduce reliance on American-made chips. But the major task is easier said than done. In recent years, the U.S. and its allies have ramped up sanctions against China's chip sector, blocking the regime from advancing its chip-making ability and stopping the Chinese military from improving via Western know-how. Next, a senior Chinese official visited Taiwan's capital city, Taipei, Monday. The visit is considered a rare one and follows large-scale Chinese military drills near the island last week. Here's what's happening.
The deputy mayor of Shanghai, China's largest city, led the delegation. Right outside the airport, they encountered protesters holding banners that read, "The forum is a Trojan horse to take over Taiwan." Here's the head of the protesters.
We don't have dignity because when the Chinese officials, come here and called us Chinese Taipei, but we are Taiwan, there is no goodwill. The communist bandits continue to hold military drills and cross the median line.
The protesters also shouted, "Taiwan and China, separate countries."
The leader of South Korea's ruling party, Han Dong-hoon, said Monday he's stepping down. His decision comes 2 days after the nation's parliament voted to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol.
I'm stepping down from the position of leader of the People Power Party. With the resignation of the party's Supreme Council members, the council has collapsed, making it impossible for me to continue fulfilling my duties as party leader in a normal manner.
Han's resignation follows backlash within his own party over his stance on President Yoon's impeachment. Despite the criticism, Han said he had no regrets about his position. President Yoon was impeached after a second vote by the opposition-led parliament. The move was sparked by his controversial and short-lived attempt to impose martial law earlier this month.
South Korea's constitutional court begins reviewing Yoon's impeachment today. The court has up to 6 months to determine whether to remove Yoon from office or reinstate him.
U.S. soldiers stationed in Japan will gradually transfer back to U.S. soil to Guam starting this Saturday. 100 U.S. Marine troops have already left Okinawa, a southern island of Japan. Thousands of American soldiers will follow. After arriving in Guam, U.S. and Japanese militaries will conduct joint training there. The transfer is part of an agreement Washington and Tokyo achieved 12 years ago. Okinawa is home to 70% of all U.S. troops stationed in the country. The U.S. deployment aims to preserve peace in the region and aids Tokyo in boosting its defense capability. That's as military threats from Russia, China, and North Korea have been on the rise near Japan in recent years. The Pentagon is spending $10 billion to bolster defense at Guam in case it becomes a target for China's ballistic missiles. But would China's hypersonic glide vehicle warhead be able to bypass Guam's defense systems? Rick Fisher, senior fellow at the International Assessment and Strategy Center, weighs in. Rick Fisher, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Tiffany, thanks for having me back.
Now, the Pentagon successfully intercepted a ballistic missile. This was during a defense test on Guam. Now, this is just the first step of a bigger plan to bolster Guam's defenses. That's in case of a worst-case scenario with China. Now, given Guam's location, how essential will these shields be in the case of countering that China threat?
Tiffany, the $10 billion estimated Pentagon missile defense plan for Guam is essential. Guam is the farthest American-controlled military outpost in the Pacific. It is the most important outpost for the United States in deterring a Chinese attack against Taiwan, Chinese military action against the Philippines, and Japan. Everything that the United States would have to do to deter or combat Chinese aggression will depend on access to functioning military bases in Guam.
Now, on the other hand, China is developing something known as the DF-27, which is equipped with a hypersonic glide vehicle, or HGV. That's to avoid detection, as it's a lot more maneuverable than a ballistic missile. Now, it's not ready yet, but would that be able to bypass these defense systems on Guam?
It's very likely that China has a hypersonic glide vehicle equipped missile that can attack Guam today. But the DF-27, yes, is an imminent threat, a much longer range missile. But the air-launched ballistic missile that the People's Liberation Army Air Force launches from its H-6N bombers, very likely has a hypersonic glide vehicle warhead. Yes, these are maneuverable. If the warhead is maneuvering within, let's say, the last phase of its attack trajectory, that really makes it difficult for a radar to calculate where the warhead is going to be and then transmit that information to an intercepting missile. That's why hypersonic glide vehicles are so dangerous and why the United States is planning a layered defense of long-range anti-missile interceptors and short-range missile interceptors.
Now, when it comes to, the timeline for this missile defense shield on Guam, that's set to be completed in about 2030. Now, China's DF-27 is not out yet. What do you see as the timeline for both of these? Will either come first, or what can we expect?
The defensive task for the Americans on Guam is very steep and will get worse as we approach the end of the decade. However, the United States must also prepare the same kind of defenses for Hawaii, which would be our fallback if Guam was damaged sufficiently. And defending both of these territories and states is essential practice for the Trump administration's ambition to create a national missile defense for the continental United States.
Rick Fisher, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocusntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Coming up on NTD, stay tuned for America's Hope with Kelly Wright. Tonight, Kelly talks to author Alexandra Hudson, author of the book The Soul of Civility. Hudson offers ideas for how families can avoid conflict this holiday season by steering clear of politics. And later, Richard Manning, president of the nonprofit Americans for Limited Government, discusses concerns about the Kids Online Safety Act. That's tonight on America's Hope at 10 p.m. after China in Focus. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.